Hi, and welcome to Advisor's Corner. This is Hector Garcia, accountant and business consultant. Today, we're going to interview Trent McLaren from Australia. Trent was named Thought Leader of the Year by Accountant Daily in Australia. He worked a couple of years with Intuit, working with QuickBooks Online in Australia, helping accountants and bookkeepers adopt the QuickBooks technology. And he's now working for Practice Ignition, a very exciting company that helps the same people, accountants and bookkeepers, manage their engagements. Trent, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me along, Hector. It's fantastic to be here.
Thank you for coming in. So, Trent, first question. What does Thought Leader of the Year mean, and how do I become that?
Hey, great question. I'm still figuring that out myself, but it has something to do with the thoughts going on inside my head and how I decided to communicate them. Winning it, I think you'd probably have to move to Australia, my friend, probably down to the beach, enjoying some of that Sydney summer weather. If you can do that, I think we can get you in there.
I absolutely want to do it. I got to see if I can bring my wife and kids along, but we'll give that a shot.
Yeah, no, look, sounds great. There's a place here for you.
Awesome. So what are the type of things that you've been heavily engaged with in the past, let's say 2 or 3 years, in terms of sharing information in social media and working with the accountant and bookkeeping profession that has led up to the magazine giving you that title?
I think, realistically, we're looking at a huge transformation that's happening in the industry. And realistically, for me to use social media was a way to, how do I get in front of more people without having to call them 100 times over? Well, how can I do that as if I'm on a stage or whatever it may be? Social media became my vehicle of being able to get that message out quicker and faster. And realistically, for me, it's about what does that change of business model look like? We're not looking at once a year engagements anymore or payments or whatever it may be. We're engaging with our clients on a more regular basis. We've got better things to talk to them about because we've got better data to articulate with them. And it's about translating that data into meaningful, tangible actions that these accountants and bookkeepers can better advise on decisions that these clients, they can be making. How this can show how you can increase your profit. Here's how we can make sure you're not running out of inventory every month. So it's about how do we translate the data into a meaningful conversation between the accountant or bookkeeper and the client. That's the biggest thing that I'm embarking on and trying to help accountants and bookkeepers with.
And across the pond, or whatever, 2 ponds, however ponds over we may be, Australia here in the USA, I would like to ask you about what are the trends that are resonating. For example, in the US, in a lot of the conferences I've been to and webinars and all those education platforms, there are 3 themes resonating throughout the industry. One is do more value pricing. So basically means don't charge by the hour, charge whatever your work is worth and whatever your clients values your work to be. So that's one of the resonating themes. The other one is specialization. Don't try to be everything for everybody. Pick a niche, pick an area of specialty, do it well, do it repeatedly, and somehow that is going to make you more successful. And the third one is pretty much embrace technology rather than try to protect yourself against it. I don't know if Australia is going through the same transitions, but I would love to know, what are you hearing out there?
So we are talking about the same things here in Australia. So charging the outcome, not the time it takes you to get to an outcome. So it's, you've got key deliverables with your client, and that's what you're pricing them as for that value pricing piece. There's a lot of talk here, I think, around culture within a firm as well. We're not, you're trying to keep your clients, your employees engaged in the work that they're doing and making sure that they're staying, because you've got these awesome junior rock star accountant and bookkeepers that they want to do more, and they've got all these amazing technologies at their fingertips that they want to play around with and use. So there's a big spur around culture and maintaining and retaining your superstars here at the moment. We do talk about the specialization and niche side of it as well. And then there's also trying to find out what those specializations are. And people are going quite far and wide as to what they want to specialize in. And the reverse side of that, which I found quite interesting, some people are actually saying, well, whilst everyone else is going to specialize in certain industries, well, we might specialize in certain types of service. And some have just said, oh, well, we're going to specialize in just in compliance and compliance only, so that we'll be the compliance people, even though everyone else is trying to find other things to do to add to the compliance as well. So, yeah, it's interesting as you find these different mix and makeup of accountant and bookkeepers decide who they want to be. And it's really cool because they get to reinvent what their business and brand actually means to their clients and who they want to be in the next 5 or 10 years' time. There's also a big push around the marketing side of things as well. So how do accountants and bookkeepers brand themselves and market to win and gain new clients? So there's a huge focus around experience, customer experience. So if you're familiar with design thinking concepts and practices that technology startups use when they're building a platform or a product, they're using the same principles to build out better services and engage with their clients on a new level that they hadn't anticipated before.
Right. And for the folks that are not in the lingo, in the industry here, compliance it just basically means tax returns. It means the work that we get by default, that accountants kind of get by default. And what Trent is talking about is, how to fight for that work that's not the one that's by default. And that's what the trend is. However, some people are saying if everybody's moving away from that, then some are trying to become really good at that. And that in itself has become its own specialty or niche. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting as well, actually. I kind of laughed when I heard it the first time, but yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, one of the things I found quite interesting is sometimes specialty and niche is not exactly what we always think. Like, for example, I recently had a client, or I have a client I've been consulting with, that only dry cleans wedding dresses, and we were talking about the work and stuff, and I was seeing that we're charging $500, $700, $800, and I'm like, this is a kind of an interesting market. Who pays that kind of money to dry clean a wedding dress, especially because people don't really use a wedding dress twice for the most part. So I was trying to find out, learn more about what this niche was. And then when I was digging deeper, she says, well, I actually wash museum grade wedding dresses. I'm like, okay, can you explain a little bit further? She's like, well, Lady D's wedding dress. Yeah, I've been washing that for 50 years. So I think it's kind of an interesting thing. It's you pick something so ultra specific, but you become almost the only one that people think about to do it, and then you get this business that pays a lot more than what the average people get paid for, just because you're known as the ultra specialist at that. So I thought that was kind of interesting to just kind of talk about the accounting industry. I met a guy in a conference that tells me that his specialty is deal with small businesses that have 2 to 4 partners. And I'm like, okay, 2 to 4 partners, that's it. So what if they have 5, 6 partners? He's like, that wouldn't be my niche, okay? And what if it was a sole owner or husband and wife? She's like, no, they have to be 2 partners. They could be siblings, they could be family, they could be best friends, or they could be known, but that's my specialty, 2 to 4 partners. And I had to ask why. I had to ask, what is it about that? And he says, well, I've become really, really good at mediating agreements, financial agreements between small groups of partners. And my clients like to involve me every single time there's a dispute about who should get paid what, distributions, setting each other's salaries. And I've become really, really good at that. And once I learned that I was really good at that, I've only took clients of that nature. So I thought that was so interesting. But you were talking about marketing before. I asked him, how are you marketing this? Right? Because this is the real interesting thing. How are you marketing this? And it turns out that he's marketing in the same websites where people are researching about partnership agreements and things like that. So he actually figured out the business owners that have partners, they're doing the research about partnerships and distributions, and how to people that are typing, how to create compensation for owners, and he's tapping into that market by marketing, writing thought leadership pieces and stuff. So I thought that was interesting as well. Let me ask you, Trent, what kind of interesting niches or specialties have you seen in Australia?
Depends on the type of business. You'll find, if it's accounting and bookkeepers, then they'll dive not into just services, but into industries as well. So it's there's a bit of both. So it might be that, as you sort of mentioned before, like I'm a dry cleaner, which is already a pretty specialty industry in itself. Like there's not really, like there are, but not really. But then to take it a step further and say, well, we only do wedding dresses, but then we only do, 50-year-old museum wedding dresses. And I think part of that is that you're tapping into an emotional point of it's a service that needs to be around. It's not something everyone thinks of because we think, hold on, that doesn't make sense to me. Like I would never think that should be a thing to do. But it all starts with seeing a problem or a problem in that customer's journey, and you're able to apply a service that, if you do it so well, there's so many other people that have the same problem there. I think, with Australian businesses, we do a lot of trades and construction and things like that here, and I find that you can get business coaches that will niche specifically to like not just electricians, but then certain types of electricians, like sole trader electricians. Yeah, and it's different because when you're a small business, when it's just you, like you were saying before about 2 to 4 partners, to when you're 5 and above, there's different dynamics that occur at different stages of business and growth. And I think through that, you coach them to a certain point, and then that is when they exit out and you start to bring in a new client in. So you understand what your sales cycle is for those types of industries, which I think was, sort of really important. It wasn't, we don't want to be everything to everyone. We don't want to be a business coach to every electrician, but we want to know exactly these electricians, and we're going to help them get to a stage where they can start to employ team members and so forth. And then we kind of take our hands off and let them take control of the wheel. So I think every good niche is able to identify a market that, needs specialty help, and you understand that there are no other competitors in this space, then it's purely yours for that present or that short-term amount of time where you are the king until someone else picks up that, there's no one else, we can do it. And then, you start to build the market out. But if you're the first one, then you might get a good head start for anywhere from 12 to 24 months with no competition, which is, that's a lucrative opportunity.
I think it's both being the first one or the one that has the endurance to deal with the challenges behind being a specialty practitioner, because the hardest thing is saying no. And I find that, and I speak to many people that have their positioning set. They are specialists in whatever they are, and they say, I tend to say no more than I say yes. And that's the stuff that takes courage and years of practice and perseverance. So not just the ones that are first to a niche, but the ones that I think can withstand however long it takes for you to create that position, 2 or 3 years, whatever it is.
Completely agree. It's knowing who is my ideal customer and not wavering away from that ideal customer, because if you start to give way, then when things sort of start to go wrong, or you start coming across scenarios that you're not as familiar with, it gets a lot harder. You're actually having to apply more resources and more time to them, versus when you're dealing with a certain type of customer and you've mapped out sort of every scenario and every journey that you know inside and out, and you are a true expert in that sense. So it actually is a lot easier for you to systemize and work through with those type of customers.
Absolutely. And since we're in this topic of specialization or specialty, you work now for a company that's very micro specialized on the solution that you provide. It's called Practice Ignition. And Trent, you mind talking about it?
Yeah, sure thing. So Practice Ignition was born out of a place to service true cloud accounting professionals around the world. So with the transformation of We've gone from desktop to cloud accounting. It wasn't just another product that we bought off the shelf. It's actually transforming the way that our business models work. We're not just doing once a year tax work. We're doing quarterly, monthly advisory reporting, management reporting. Like, we're working more with our small businesses on a more regular basis. And that means we actually need to have scope and agreements in place for that on a monthly, quarterly, proper basis. And then obviously facilitating the payments in a flexible way that our customers are happy to proceed. So Practice Ignition combines three really important elements. The first being the proposal end your engagement letter. It's all digitized and it's nice and presented to your client in a really great way. Second is the billing side of it. So you can, depending on the market or the country you're in, you can process credit card or ACH payments through Practice Ignition, all within your digital engagement. And thirdly is the analytics piece. We introduced an analytics dashboard this year that starts to give you KPIs and metrics that true cloud professionals should be using to measure their growth as they transition into a cloud model. Things like monthly recurring revenues, looking at what our most popular services are. So if we are going to niche our services, we know exactly what are our most engaged services with our clients. These are things that we surface automatically based on the proposals and the engagements as they are created and signed with your client. So we exist to support the accounting and bookkeeping profession. Yes, this platform could work for other industries, but all of our marketing and resources are going towards nailing down being the best onboarding analytics tool for accounting and bookkeeping partners. That is our mission and goal. And it was born from, the brainchild of an accountant here in Australia. So we are a true accountant platform and product, which is awesome. I love it.
Sure. And let me just kind of break this down for the audience here, because I used this software for several years already. An accounting practice, just like any service business out there, has many stages in which they interact with their clients. The first stage is, after all the marketing is done and you get the foot in the door with the client, is proposing the service. And this could be in a one-time project. It could be a monthly engagement. It could be, in some cases, some people charge hourly. It could just be a presentation of, skills and capabilities translated into an hourly rate proposal. That first stage usually is a formal communication that the accounting industry calls the engagement letter. Some of these deals go through, some of these deals don't go through, right? Just like every business. Where Practice Ignition sits is trying to nail that first interaction, that presentation of the services, the pricing, the scope, the agreement to work with you. I believe you guys collect payment as well. Is that one of? Okay, yeah. So there's a collection of payment, and then after that, Practice Ignition, I guess, could try to serve other aspects of practice management, but they choose not to. They choose to be absolute experts at that stage of the, let's call it, the sales or onboarding process for the accounting profession. Did I get that right, Trent?
Yeah, correct. And it's the start of every relationship. We are the start of every relationship with any new client that comes into your firm. And if, depending on the cloud accounting system you're using, we can then actually create those entries back into your accounting system automatically. So raising that invoice or deploying the work. And we're doing a lot more with all the big players, over the coming months and into next year as well. So, but yeah, we're focused wholeheartedly on the start of that. And I think we'll dive further into how do we help accountants sell more as they're building that proposal out and engagement, because that's a big part of the trends that we sort of have seen here, there in Australia, is how do accountants actually sell more or make more money through the use of things like value pricing, or if it's marketing and going into a niche.
Yeah, one thing about accountants, they're experts in numbers and really bad at pricing, right? And even worse at marketing. This is how a guy like me, a guy in Miami from my house making videos, it's able to create such a successful YouTube channel, because all I did is do something simple, which is put my face out there and talk and do quote unquote marketing. using a free platform like YouTube. So let me ask you a question about metadata, Trent. And I know that there's some metadata you can't share, but since you're working for a company that basically has interesting information about accounting firms of all sizes and how they go about onboarding, what have you seen? What have you learned interesting about accountants and their onboarding process? And what trends are you seeing, or what changes are you seeing in that, whether it's positive or negative or different on that in a metadata scale?
Yeah, sure thing. So, just to put in reflection, so we've got about 1,300 accounting firms that are using our platform all over the world. We're processing around 37 million in payments every year. So a lot of things we start to see is obviously the amount of time it takes to engage or close a new client, and where is that client coming from, whether it's come through someone's website or whether it's just come through a face-to-face meeting or a Zoom meeting like we're having today. So, we generally find that advisors are halving their time in creating the engagements and then deploying that work out to customers. So they're improving their efficiency as a result. So also find that they start to measure exactly, how much time they are spending doing things that they, weren't doing before. So by doing everything digitally, they're finding their conversion rates are now going through the roof as opposed to what it was before. Because you think about the world of onboarding a client today, we get into our Word document, we print it, we sign it, we scan it, we send it to the client prints it, they sign it, they scan it, they send it back, and then we store that somewhere in our office in a cabinet. But when we start to implement these digital tools, we remove the double handling. So by removing the double handling, we keep it all locked and secure within digital accounts on your side, our side. You've now got full transparency of where everything sits, and you're not having to waste so much time or paper or whatever it may be trying to figure out, where is that proposal up to? When was it created? When did they look at it? These are all the things that we can drill down on as a result. So we find that, as I said, you generally get a 30 or 40% lift in conversions just by adopting digital tools like practice ignition to help you engage your clients and close the deal.
And how significant you think is for any service professional to bring on board the client with a document, a formal document like an engagement, a scope of work, in a digital way, where the client or the potential client in this case reads, agrees, signs, and it all sits in a portal, let's call it. What significance do you think that has had on the longevity of the service or the quality of the service, short run or long run?
Yeah, I think it formalizes the whole process, because it's not a verbal agreement. It's not just, hey, I'll do some work for you. Yeah, sounds great. I'll send you an invoice. It's, hold on, I'm going to send you a clear list of everything that I'm going to do for you. You're going to read exactly what that scope looks like. And then once you've read that, you're going to sign it and you can keep a copy and I'm going to keep a copy. If that scope ever changes between now and the next 12 months, we'll just add that in to as part of your engagement. You'll sign it and then we'll bill you accordingly for it. So by having a formalized process like this, it's allowing you to minimize your scope creep. And when I say scope creep, what I'm saying is you're not letting your clients add in all these other services that you're not charging them for. So it's really clear on what services you're doing for them, what you're committing to, and the timeframes you're committing to do it. And then you build them accordingly for that. And that's a really important part as to why, it's great to have a digital structure like this.
Great. And do you believe more and more accountants are moving to hourly type of rates? I mean, are they kind of staying in that, or are you seeing more fixed rate engagements come in through the pipeline?
It's interesting, right? If you look at any other industry, right? If I said to you, hey, I can edit this video for you and I could do it in 60 minutes, or I can do it in 24 hours. If I do it in 60 minutes, it's $249, pay it now. But if I do it in 24 hours, it's only $120. Now, depending on, your priorities, you might say, you know what, 60 minutes is great. I'm going to pay you $249 now for you to do a fast effective job. Like, you're getting priority, you're getting my time and effort. If you go into the accounting world, if I do things faster for you and I'm doing it on an hourly rate, I'm penalising myself. And the only communication between me and my customer is that, hey, I'm charging on an hourly rate, which means that you're going to measure me based on how long I've taken to do the work. Now, if I'm doing the work and I'm really good at my job and I do it in 20 minutes, why am I getting paid less than the person that's doing it much slower? How does that work? Why does the slow person get, the reward when I'm doing a really good job at a really efficient pace? Maybe I'm using technology to help scale my efforts. It doesn't make sense. So you need to attach a value on the outcome that you're trying to achieve with your client. So in Australia, it's a big shift towards value and fixed-based packaging. So fixed being, obviously, it's, here's 3 products. You can choose which one you want, and that's all it's going to be month on month. Value being, it's a customized fixed quote. So every client is different. They've all got different needs. You help identify the value of what they're willing to pay for your service, and it's custom services for each client. And that's what we mean by a fixed value price that's agreed upon.
Right. And you feel I heard a lot of people in the whole service industry, not just accounting, complain that if you do a job too fast or if you deliver too fast, it's hard to justify a higher price. And I know you mentioned just now, I'll edit a video, within an hour and I'll charge you this much, or if I can do it within a day, I'll charge you this much. And what you have given as an example, it's an example of a higher price if I do it faster versus a lower price if I do it slower. Is it a fallacy that a lot of people think that way, or is there a shift in mindset?
I think it'll be a shift in mindset, but it really just is about how you communicate that to your client. And I think when you articulate that to them and say, look, I'm not asking you to measure me based on how long I take you to do something. I want you to measure me based on the work that I'm doing for you. So if you want your month-end work completed, that's what we're pricing you. We're pricing you for the outcome, not for how long it takes me to achieve the outcome. Because I can achieve the outcome in 10 minutes or 5 hours. I can do it in either. Because I run an efficient practice, I want to do it in 10 minutes. That doesn't change the outcome. You could go to someone else and they charge you the exact same thing. But A, may not be as good, and B, it's taking you half as long to get that information.
Yeah, and since you work for a company that provides templates as part of the service, you provide templates for different service types. Is that, you guys still do that, right? You just have templates.
Correct. Yeah, we do. Definitely do.
I assume you read some of them or quite a bit of them, correct? I would say, is that safe to say that, Trent?
Correct.
So this is a place where maybe we could take a couple of interesting tips from you. What type of language have you seen that's different or interesting in these engagement letters and these proposals that you have found it to be effective at closing? Whether it's language that particularly speaks about the value, or speaks about the performance, or speaks about the price, or speaks about the scope, or whatever. Is there any interesting language or that you've seen?
Yeah, there's a bit. I mean, you've got to be really, again, I keep saying the word really clear, and I keep saying clear communication because I really mean it. Like, when you talk to a customer, it's really easy to fuddle things up, not have a plan, and not clearly articulate exactly what you mean. So I think when it comes to agreements and you're describing services, whether it's on an agreement on paper or it's verbally with your words, you need to be able to say, this is what we're going to do for you. This is the job, and this is how we're going to do it. And this is the impact of us doing it. So you kind of need to say it three or four different ways. So, we're going to do your year-end tax work. This is why we're going to do it. This is the impact it's going to have on your business. And that's why we do it, right? And then if you articulate to your client so they understand the process of what you're going through, the expertise that you're putting on the scenario, and you say, and that's why we charge $400 for your tax this year, because it took us, we had to do these things and this was our process. So the more clients understand who you are, what your process is to a situation, and again, it's really clear and it's been articulated in a great, understandable way, then that then allows you to have a better relationship in talking prices of your services with your clients. And that also helps build trust. They know that you're not a nufty that's trying to, take a lot of money off them for nothing. You've actually articulated exactly why it is that you're charging what you're charging.
Perfect. All right, Trent, thank you very much for that. Let me ask you a couple of personal questions before we log out. Let me ask you about your favorite books. What are your favorite 2-3 business books?
2-3 business books. I just finished reading The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Amazing read, specifically because it talks about, if you're a CEO of a company, or it talks about the hard decisions that you have to make and how you should measure up those hard decisions, like where what the impact will be on the organization. And at the end of the day, you've got to do what you've got to do for your company. If you get too tied up in the emotions and the feelings of people you work through, then that may not, pan out well for the company. But then if it goes the other way, then again, it both isn't great. So you've got to find the right balance. But it's a really good book for anyone that, wants to be a CEO, wants to run a startup, wants to work in that type of company that is fast moving with exponential growth at the end of it. I like reading a bit of biographies and things like that. I was reading Shoe Dog, which was the story of Nike out of Oregon. It's just an awesome story. Like, just a guy that started making footwear once upon a time. He borrowed $6,000 from I think it was his dad or someone, and that turned into a multi-billion-dollar organization just thriving today. But that he was a track and field coach. Like, this was just where it started in Portland, Oregon, the college there or whatever it was. Crazy. I love those kind of stories. I love where did things start and where do they get to today. And then outside of that, Lean Startups, obviously a great book, again, for the same reason I mentioned before. You need to be able to operate when you don't have resources, you don't have money, and you're building products for customers. Put your customer at the center of everything that you're doing and making sure that you are actually solving a problem, because that's when you know that customers will want what you're selling. It's probably my three books that I'd recommend.
So that was Shoe Dog, Lean Startup, and what was the first one again?
The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz.
The hard thing about hard things.
Yeah,
perfect.
It's a great one. Yeah.
Awesome. And Trent, what is the best advice you ever received?
I think something that sort of resonates with me pretty well is you've just got to keep going, even when things are going against you, or you've had a couple of no's, or people are saying, you can't do that, like you're not qualified to that. It's rubbish. You can put yourself and apply yourself to anything that you want to do. The only person that's stopping you from doing it is yourself. So when you're taking feedback on, by all means, take the feedback on, but understand where is that coming from and how does that help me go to the next level that I need to go to. So yeah, never take it to heart, and just do what you need to do to fuel that fire to keep building on what you're building.
And Trent, any last words?
Realistically, I think whether you're an accountant or bookkeeper, you're a small business owner, it doesn't matter. You need to be aware of the changes going on around you, whether that is technology, processes, whatever it is. So the better you keep your ear to the ground in your industry, become a bit of a wizard in your industry, the better informed you will be on making decisions about where you should go as a company or as a business. And that's something I kind of strive to try and do every single day. I want to be a wizard in the accounting industry in every market of the world, because then I know that when I need to make decisions on what we do as a company here at Practice Ignition, I can do that with information saying, well, I know this is what customers in Europe are talking about. I know what accountants in the UK are talking about. And that all comes through, again, involving yourself in that space as much as you can. If you want to be successful, you realistically can't do it any other way.
Perfect. Thank you. And if people want to reach to you and connect with you, I know you're all over social media, but what are some of the ways that people can get a hold of you?
You can get me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or any good social media platform. I will be on it. You can get me at Trent_McLaren on Twitter. You'll find me on LinkedIn and Facebook using the same name. But yeah, otherwise, that's the best way to grab me.
Thank you very much, Trent. That was a great conversation. Always great to catch up. Thank you very much for joining us. You have a great day.
Thanks so much, Hector. Great to be with you, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.